and gentlemen, give it up for Thomas Ermacora.
Almost. Just want to see it. Maybe give me 1 minute. Intelligence is changing. Just a few days ago, ChatGPT-4, I'm sure some of you use, passed what we call the Turing test, and is one of very few computers that have passed that test so far. Perhaps two, it depends how you look at it. That test defines, and has defined for the past 70 years almost, what we can consider is indistinguishable from human intelligence. So guess what? We've been looking at the stars to find out if there was alien intelligence. Actually, it's already amongst us, in your screen. And maybe that's good news, because there's no doubt that AI is going to transform pretty much everything, and we should be grateful and hopeful that it's going to be our best ally to fight climate change, cancer, poverty, you name it. However, there's also room for some anxiety when under 10 companies with an overweight founder control the vast majority of that intelligence that's being shaped in labs and put out. So this is not about fear-mongering. A few years ago, I was asked to be the futurist for the G7 alongside 80 scientists and 4 other futurists to understand what AI would do to society, how we would be able to work best with it, or create what we called companion or benevolent artificial intelligence. And there's many ways to look at this, and certainly we were very surprised, all experts were, that it's gone so fast in the past year. What I want to tell you is a story of hope where you are the main protagonist. Not long ago, we had an election meddling in America. We also had COVID, and we had a social media revolution that went both sweet and sour. And those tools of AI that were used in that period were still very primitive. Now think what would happen with the current tools if they were deployed incorrectly. For example, in the 2024 American election, on which perhaps a lot of the way we look at climate change hinges, we can always decide it's the moment in history that matters the most or not. However, it's hard to disagree with the fact that unsophisticated AI messed up society a lot. What would sophisticated AI do if unchecked? And then, so we're having a kind of an AI moment. And we may have very soon what we could call a quantum moment, where our computational capability is going to be manifold, no longer sort of doubled every year or so, but rather multiplied in many 10x's. And how does that affect us? Well, it affects our ability to do complex things with computation, but it also affects the way that AI is able to do things we can't predict. And so there is such a thing as the singularity, which was defined by a fellow futurist called Ray Kurzweil, where basically we won't be able to make a difference between the technosphere and the biosphere. And he thinks it's going to happen in 2029. So that's very, very soon. That's not so important. What we also know is that there is a looming ecological collapse. And so what are these things, how does this matter? So, well, I want to propose to you that we can either participate significantly in the development of AI and society together and go towards what we call anthropophilia, or protopia instead of utopia or dystopia. And this is something where basically this is an invitation to you to love tomorrow. This conference, this festival, is an opportunity for you to upgrade yourselves. Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make. And in the slide before, you saw that there was a kink that suggested that we could go into an AGI apocalypse if we didn't participate. And that is potentially not an impossibility. So it's a bit like saying if you're going to take a plane, you want to know it's safe. Well, right now, we don't know if the plane is very safe. So a lot of people would like to see something similar to the FDA process for drug approval be applied to the release of artificial intelligence. And there are many movements out there that are starting to happen that are pushing for this, including recently Google, Anthropic, Microsoft, and other players like OpenAI have formed what's called the frontier. And that's going to be effectively something that's going to look at some of these issues. But I want to invite you also to look at the nature of intelligence itself. The professor Howard Gardner talked about 8 forms of intelligence: kinesthetic, musical, emotional, etc. And so far, computation and machine intelligence hasn't gone very far into some of these other ones. And so we could, if we disengage, go into what I would call peak mankind. You've heard of peak oil. Well, peak oil, is hard to tell because we keep finding more. And peak mankind is maybe an elusive idea. However, if we disengage, we could all of a sudden kind of become slaves because we won't want to apply our intelligence so proactively as we might need to do to be, not say in competition fairly with machines, but rather be able to make our own decisions and determinations such that the human becomes prevalent and maintains prevalence. So I'm particularly concerned about this associated with the notion of the wisdom gap. So right now, AI and humans, we still have the privilege of some form of wisdom. We can apply brute force and intelligence through computation, but it doesn't really apply to wisdom. And what one can see is that we could probably still have that edge for a little while, especially if we do this collectively. So that's my suggestion to you, is to not lose sight of the idea of the wisdom gap. So we shouldn't fall into losing our belief in ourselves. This is a quote from Ernest Hemingway: "For sale, baby shoes never worn," called a 6-word story, named and coined as the shortest meaningful story ever made by a human. And it was given to Bard, the Google computer, to compose a novel out of it. And it did so in 4 seconds, something that a panel could not determine whether it was written by a human or not. What does that show? It shows that computers can do extraordinary things today, and we can use it for good, we can use it for bad. But there's this sort of element of the nature of intelligence which is inherent to ourselves, which is what people call NI, natural intelligence. And we have lots of that. It has many forms, it's very diverse, and there are many AIs, and we are born of natural intelligence. And we should continue to exploit that so that we can create some form of happy escape velocity from the doom and gloom that some people predict from an artificial general intelligence incident. You may have heard the story that Marilyn Monroe came up to Einstein and said, "Imagine, Albert, if we had a child together. Your intelligence and my beauty." And he immediately retorted, "Marilyn, that's very kind of you, and I'm touched, and what a beautiful thought. But what if, reversely, this child would have your intelligence and my beauty?" So, this is the question of the moment. How do we marry ourselves? It's not a fight, it's about a happy wedding. It's a relationship with the future of intelligence, where we're becoming the chimpanzee. And truly, it's about how to manifest this and to be within the realm of change together as a society. Our collective intelligence, our wisdom, our creativity, our ability to sense things and create from nothing, or seemingly, is something that should continue to distinguish us. And in a festival of creativity like this one, you know, this is yet another reminder. Keep belief in yourself. Don't disengage. Don't think that AI is better than you. It is still your friend. There are a few things that need to happen for that to be done safely in the future. But I really want to encourage you to see this. And there are so many examples we could give. But I think at a moment in history like now, where people are reading in the news that it's either fantastic or great, it's more complicated. We need a nuanced view. We need to contribute. We need to be part of this.
Artificial intelligence is not a separate entity from us, but a reflection of our own mind. By cultivating it with skillful means and ethical values, we can enhance our own enlightenment and benefit all beings.
This is an excerpt from a friend of mine, Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn, wrote with ChatGPT as the Buddha in his book Impromptu. And in a way, this is the moral of the story, that we have something to learn from what we're doing currently with AI, because it defines who we are. And if we program collectively, like good parenting, the AIs that we're seeing today, we will be able to potentially make great friends and partners out of them. Thank you very much.